All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of the Addictively Speaking podcast. Tonight, my guest is Rhi, and she's here to tell her story, and we're going to talk a little addiction and recovery. We're just going to see what we can get into. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, actually. I meant to ask what time it was with you now.
What time? It's UK time, 7:55.
Oh, of course you're in the UK. I'm thinking you're in the US.
Nah,
no,
I am American.
I realised that.
Mistake.
That was why I started talking about VPNs. You must have been like, why is she saying that when I'm in the UK? That's even weirder that we've had these problems.
Yeah, no, we are in the same country.
We are actually in the same country.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in Crawley, right outside of London.
I know Crawley.
Do you?
I am. I'm from Kent, so border of southeast London. So I used to. I worked in London for a long time. I did a lot of my addiction in London.
Oh, okay. All right. So for everybody out there that's going to be listening and they're going to be watching, tell everybody about yourself, where you're from, what you were addicted to, and just get into some of your story.
Cool. Good evening. My name is Rhi. I am 41 years old. I'm originally from Dartford, which is in Kent, which is southeast of England. And I am nearly 4.5 years recovered from cocaine and alcohol. My addiction, I think when I've kind of looked at mine is quite interesting, is that I figured that mine actually began with food. That was how mine started. I was a dancer from a young age, so I was kind of in front of mirrors from like the age of 4. And so that was kind of when my addictive behaviour started with food. But of course, then what happened when I kind of hit 16, 17, and it's quite different over here in the UK, is that you can drink in pubs from 18. And back in those days, in the 90s, when I was doing it, you didn't even have to look 18. And it was just so easy for us guys. You know, I celebrated my 16th birthday in the pub. And so I think the thing was as well, when I look back to the 90s, it was a really kind of weird era for women, because there was like this heroin chic type look. So you had to be stick thin. And so, you know, a lot of the models have come out and said that their diets were cocaine and cigarettes, which is kind of what mine was. Yeah. But then in the UK, there was this kind of ladette era that happened. And so there were these two kind of radio hosts, and Zoe Ball and Sarah Cox, their names were. And so they started the whole kind of like pints drinking and lager and women like that. And so all of a sudden, women became like really, really kind of, well, girls, I suppose then. But they also brought out like the Alco Pops. So all the alcohol was kind of like geared up to, you probably don't know what Alco Pops are. So in the like kind of when it turned in the millennium, so I turned 18 in the year 2000, and so they brought out all these like alcohol pots called like Hooch and Vodka Reef and things like that. So they all had these like kind of cartoons on them, and they were bottles, and it was just kind of one of those things of how many can we do in a night out. And when I think back, it's because this is the thing, you always get people say about addicts, and it's one of the most annoying things that I hear said, is that we chose to be addicts.
Yeah, the choice.
And I'm like,
you made a decision to be that way.
Yeah, you made the choice. I'm like, for me, I'm quite outspoken about that. If you haven't experienced addiction, please sit down. You're not part of this conversation, and I am, because addiction is one of them things that you have to have experienced it to actually be able to talk about it and know. And so the other one is, why didn't you just stop? Oh, fuck me, I never thought of that. Like, but
yeah. Oh, if it was that easy, yeah, you're right. No, obviously, just stop getting stupid drunk all the time.
Yeah,
no, seriously, yeah.
And
wow.
So that
Revelation.
was the thing. Like when I kind of look back now, it was. I went to a boys' grammar school for my kind of sixth form.
Mm.
So I was one of only about 6 girls. And it was, you know, over here is, you've probably experienced it. I was a football girl, you know, and so, and actually the truth was with me is I couldn't handle my drink very well. And so I was kind of like I don't know whether you would get this term, but like a 3 drinkers and I'm anyone's. And so I when I first did cocaine, I was like, this is incredible. You know, I can now be in the kitchen talking shit at 3 a.m. with everyone else, like I wasn't passed out in the corner. And when I kind of look back now and I'm like, God, it felt so innocent then. Like it did. Nothing, there was nothing sinister about my using, like nothing. It was, you know, it was fun, but obviously you do, you know, the further you go into recovery, the more reflection that you can actually have. And so when I kind of look back, I can see when the fun stopped. But for me in the beginning, you know, I suppose I very quickly moved from sharing drugs to having to have my own drugs. And you know, it would be like, oh, you know, we'll get some cocaine when we get out. And I was like, no, I needed to know that I had cocaine before I went out. And so that was the thing.
That's the moment. That's the transition when it stopped being like this recreational fun thing where you were just kind of like doing a little bump with your friends and it wasn't yours. You weren't buying it, but now you were like, listen, this is a must have. You need to make sure that you have it. If
I didn't have it, I wasn't drinking. That was the truth with me. And so cocaine was my driving force. And so I would, you know, the thing was, what I kind of did is, well, of course, I blamed everyone else for my problems. And so things kind of got a little bit hairy for me when I was about 21, 22. So I moved over to Trowbridge, which is near Bath, quite a sleepy town, to my best friend. And she was a sensible one out of the two of us. And so I moved there, hoping that the sleepy town would rub off on me. And it didn't. Because we seek out the exact people that we're looking for. And so very quickly, I didn't spend any time. I found, although I was there for 18 months before I actually found a cocaine dealer, but my drinking then ramped up. And the person that I was friends with did the exact same as me. And the thing is, again, when I look back at the friends that I had, you know, birds of a feather flock together. You know, I could have chosen to spend time with my other friend, but I didn't want to, because I didn't want to sit in on a Friday night, you know, watching Countdown. I wanted to be going out. And in the end, it wasn't, you know, like people that drink like different wines with different, I can't understand that. I am drinking to get drunk.
Same. That's me 100%.
Yeah. It's
when people are like, oh, how good did that taste? I'm like, fuck you mean how good it is?
I
how fast did it go down?
Like,
I want it to disappear.
Like I definitely a shots girl, because shots got me there a lot quicker. And so I was like, I used to hate being in rounds with friends, because I'm like, oh, they drink so slowly. And I'd literally just be like, I can't do this. And so I would like go to the bar, and over here they do like
some shots.
Yeah, like, so they always did, like in the nightclubs and stuff, they do 4 shots for a £5. Boff, 4 straight down.
Dangerous.
And literally dangerous. Because I just was like, oh, and I just sit there watching people. And then in the end, I just used to go, listen, count me out. And because the problem is, the minute cocaine comes in, you're getting dry mouth all over the place, and so you just kind of you're agitated then as well. It wasn't too bad when you could still smoke in clubs, but when they stopped the smoking in clubs, that was when I think actually that was when my at home using began. I just I didn't want
really.
Yeah.
I transitioned to the taking it home then.
I don't even think it was the smoking thing. So when I've been honest and I've looked back, in the beginning with my group of friends, we'd all meet at the pub at 7 on a Friday or whatever night it was. And then I remember that I started to like transition, because we'd go to the club at like 9:30, 10. And so I'd be like, oh, listen, I'll meet you at the club. I'll meet you at the pub at 9:30, just before we go to the club, so I could sit at home and do cocaine comfortably. And that was how I enjoyed it. Like no one there, no one, or I was quite happy with like one friend, but I used to, you know, like it used to frustrate, because the thing is, you know, they started putting like Vaseline on the back of toilets, and nothing will make you cry more than tipping your cocaine into Vaseline, and that is a night killer. And so this is the thing, is all the pubs started to, you know, you'd think we were doing something illegal. They started to kind of get really clued up on us, and so there were constantly bouncers at the top, and I was like, can you just let me use my drugs in peace? And so in the end, that was why I was like, I'd rather stay at home and just sniff cocaine and drink vodka. And so again, it was the friends that I had, that was exactly what they wanted to do. They wanted to sit at home, be comfortable. And
do you think that was a turning point for you, though? Like bringing it home like that? Like before, it was like this club drug. You were, you know, you're drinking and you were clubbing, and it was like a thing. It was an outside thing. Now you've turned a corner. Now it's a home thing.
Yeah.
Now it's stay home. I'm comfortable. I'm gonna do my drugs. I'm gonna drink. Like, do you think that was a turning point for you in the addiction as well? Because now it's not an outside thing. Now it's an inside thing. Now it's an in-home thing.
Yeah, and so that was the point. And so then it could be any night, because then you know, because I wasn't reliant on it being a Friday night because everyone was out, or a Saturday night because everyone was out. You know, Tuesday became a firm favorite. Thursday.
Why a Tuesday?
Honestly,
why not a Monday? That's the beginning of the week. That's the worst day. We want to be done with that day.
Monday would be the day when I would literally be dragging myself back from the weekend. Monday was the
weekend.
Because literally my nose would be, I couldn't get anything more up it. So Monday was the day to just, and then, and this is the thing as well. When I look back on it, I did, because there is the progression of addiction that I speak about, and you know, it's I see it in people who relapse. You know, that whole thing of, because you know, I was like other people. You know, I'd sit there and I'd be like, right, I'm gonna have a water in between an alcoholic drink, and I'd try and do things like that. And I remember I started making deals with myself at home, and I'd be like, right, I'm just going to have one line every hour. And then I'll be like, oh, but if I had two smaller lines, then I could do one every half an hour. But then if I so I always had my nails done, because I could do it straight out. It was a lot easier, especially if you were out, just your nails straight in the bag. Oh, good times. And then I'd be like, oh, well, if I do that, I can do one every 15 minutes. Oh, and it was just my head was busy with cocaine. It was all I thought about morning, noon, and night. And for me, the final, I think the little voice, and I think most addicts will agree that the little voice of you're a drug addict had kicked in about 5 years before I found recovery. But because of my upbringing, because of where I was from, because of where I went to school, because of the jobs that I had, I was like, no, that's not what a drug addict looks like. I'm not, you know, I'm not homeless. And to me, and again, it's this like hierarchy of drugs, isn't it? Because I wasn't injecting. Therefore, I kind of had this kind of moral high ground, that because I was snorting, you know, even though I was still suicidal. You know, the final 2 years, I literally was, it's got to be the worst 2 years of my life. Like, and actually, I know when I crossed the line. This was the final line cross for me, is about 3 years before I found recovery. I started to use through the morning. So there wouldn't be like a 3 a.m., 4 a.m. where I'd give up. I started to get drugs dropped off at 7, 7:30 the following morning, and I would continue on through. That was when I knew. And I tried, and every single time I used, in my head, I believed if I could just one night not do that, if I could just one night go to bed at like 3, 4 o'clock, then I wouldn't have a problem. And I couldn't. For the final 2 or 3 years, the following morning I was picking up at 7:30 because I couldn't face reality, and I didn't want to.
Isn't it weird how your mind kind of goes to those weird places? Like when you were talking about you're like doing like this math in your head. Like you're like, well, if I do this one, I used to do that when people would be like, oh, why don't you go out and drink and just do it in moderation? And I'll be like, oh yeah, that's so easy. Like I could totally do that. And then it would be like, I'll just have 3 beers. And then, I'll go out, I have 3 beers. And then the next time I went out, I'd be like, you know what? I think I'm gonna have a Captain and Coke. I'll have 2 Captains and Cokes, And then before I knew it, it was like, okay, I'm gonna do 2 Captain and Cokes, maybe 3 beers and a couple shots. And then before you know it, you're like spun back down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, you like I moderated for like 15 minutes. Like
exactly.
It was like 2 or 3 times I went out. And then the next, like by the 3rd or 4th time, I was worse than I was before. I was doing twice as much. And I couldn't get a grip on it. And then people just can't relate to that.
No.
That type of stuff, like where you're just like in your head and you're like, well, if I just do this, or maybe I'll have a water in between, like you were saying. And like your mind just goes all these weird places, and it's just making excuses for you to just be like, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's just go fucking balls to the wall. Like who gives a shit?
I think that was the thing in the end. And to be honest, it's the definition of insanity is repeating the same action over and over again and expecting a different result. That is addiction. Yeah. Right. But the weird thing is, and so I had 2 voices in my head, right? So I had like me and I had my addiction. And so I would have conversations and they'd start the minute I'd wake up. We're going to pick up today. No, we're not. No, we're not. Well, we are. And every time I knew that I'd lose. And I say to people, addiction is fighting your own brain and losing every time. Try explaining that to somebody who's never experienced it. And, I had moments of driving to my drug dealer, looking at my hands on the steering wheel going, just turn the car around. Just turn the car. But the addiction going, you'll be all right once you've had a line. You'll be okay once you've had a line. And I'd literally be like this. And I'd have the line and I'd feel okay for a couple of minutes. And then I would chase it for the next 48 hours.
For the rest of the day.
And to watch that from the outside in, I can understand, when you see the frustration with people. And I mean, my mum, she just felt helpless because she was just literally watching me kill myself very slowly. Like she just, the daughter that she knew and the person that she looked at now, she just didn't. And it was the same with my friends. They just didn't recognize me anymore. And I didn't recognize who I was. And I think once you get to that point where you have lost complete control, but you don't know that you've lost complete control and you just stop caring. And I stopped caring because
it's a scary place to be in the, I don't give a fuck about anything. I literally didn't. Where you just like, I used to think like, I didn't care about if I lived.
No.
I didn't care about if I died. I didn't care if I went to jail. I didn't care about anything. I didn't think about anything. No. It was the most selfish spot you could possibly be in.
It is.
Like, because you didn't think about your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters. You didn't care about anything. Like zero.
No.
Like I would get into knockout, drag out fights, nose broke, blood everywhere. I'm fucking a mess. And I just didn't care. And nobody could tell me anything.
No.
Like I'd just be like, I don't give a fuck. What are you going to do? I don't care.
It's the thing is, and this is what I say to people. So there's been a song that has been done recently that has been shared the shit out of on social media, right? And I can't think of the title, but it's being shared in the wrong context. Okay. And so it's like, I wish you loved me as much as you love getting high. And so then there are there are family members of addicts going, I wish, and I've actually commented, and I'm like, it's not that they don't love you. Like, I loved my family. I loved my family with my whole heart. I couldn't even choose me over cocaine.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't understand. And so when they're like, why am I not enough? And I'm like, it's got nothing to do with you. And that's hard to hear. I know that's hard to hear. But like I say, my mum was an inconvenience. Like, my mum, I was like, just leave me alone. Just let me do what I want to do. Because by that point, I literally was like, if I don't wake up, I don't care, because at least I don't have to go through this anymore. Because I was dead inside. I was so tired. My little heart and soul. And in the end, I was like, it was just like going through the motions. I lived Groundhog Day. I did the exact same thing. I bought the exact same drink. I picked up from the exact same car park, and it was the same thing. But every time, my addict would go, but it will be different this time. And I had to believe it. I had to believe it in order to do what I was going to do. And I always say, right, addiction is like being on a roundabout, but it's on fire, right? And you can't get off because it's a roundabout which is in a park. And so that's meant to be fun, but it's on fire and you're continually getting burnt. But you're convincing yourself in your head, yeah, but it's a roundabout, so it should be fun. But your rational,
having a great time.
Yeah, your rational brain is going, but you're getting burnt. You're actually getting burnt. And thank God I fucking jumped off that roundabout. That was the best day of my life. Like, and I think back to it now, and it gets me so emotional. Like, and the thing is, like you say, right, because this is a tough one to discuss. And I remember, because I've been sharing my story online since day one. And there is a celebrity over here who's not massively popular. And unfortunately, she got she crashed her car drink driving. And I did a post about it. And I was like, they're like, did she not think of anyone else? I'm like, you don't understand. She couldn't think of anything. She's not thinking about her, like, because I know that I did it, and I it's one of the hardest things that I have to sit there. I'm not proud of it, and I don't talk about it like I'm proud. But what people don't understand is that the only thought in my head was, I need more cocaine, or I need more vodka, and the only way I can get it is to get in that car and go and get it. And my addict, and I'm going, and my addict's going, go and get it. And there's no thought process. I'm not thinking, but I might kill myself. And honestly, like, thank God that I didn't hurt myself or anyone else, like, genuinely. Yeah. And I do sit there and I absolutely thank God for that I didn't.
I think that all the time about how many times I drove drunk.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking like, oh, I had like 2 beers. I'm talking like, 15 deep, a bunch of shots. I barely could fucking function.
Mm-hmm.
I could barely use my legs. And I'm out there operating a 2-ton car, like driving around. Like, it was
because there's just no rational thought. There is no rational thought.
People are like, just walk. And I'm just like, nah, I'm fucking taking my car. And they're like, why? And I'm like, fuck out of my way, man. Just let me do it.
I was the exact same. I was like, either get in the car or don't.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't care. Like, that was the thing. I was like, listen, you got 2 choices, either get in or don't. Like, and 9 times out of 10 they got in with me. That's the thing.
Yeah. And that's the scary part. My friend's the same too. I drove a car full of like 5 people.
Same.
Hammered for 40 minutes, like a 40-minute drive.
I used
like
to
fucking.
I was the same. I used to drive into Greenwich, right, to pick up my drugs, and that was when was that? That was when drink driving kind of first came in, and so I would drive literally into London, and it was like a 45 minute drive in, and then back out. I think back to that now, and I'm like, fucking hell. Like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Like, what was I thinking? And the situations.
Well, you weren't.
Well,
That's the thing.
But
There was
that's
no thought
the point.
involved.
Yeah, there's no
thought.
again. There is no thought process. The only thought process is, I don't have cocaine. I need it. Where is it? That's where I'm going.
Yeah. How do I get there?
And actually, I think the reason why using because I moved to Wales, when I was, it was like, I can't even work it out. It was like 8.5 years ago, and I could get it so easily. That was the thing. And like I'm saying to you, that I could get it dropped off at 7:30 in the morning. It wasn't that readily available in Kent. And so when that started to happen here, that was it then.
That was it.
Because it was 24-hour service. And so that was when it got to dangerous levels with me. And it makes, because obviously I'm sat in the room that I used to use in. But the only thing, there is nothing in this room that was actually here when I used to use. So everything has been changed. I've got like and so there is nothing. But of course,
did you do that on purpose? Like, is that purposely done to remove memories?
It's slowly,
like, because it's like triggers, isn't it? It's like
the final thing actually went 2 weeks ago. So there was a long settee here that the previous owners had left, and it turned out they left it because you couldn't actually get it out the house. It was too big. It had been brought in like before the roof got put on, and so and so I said to my partner, I was like, you know, we've got like a slanty roof, we can't sit on it, and so he was like, right, I'll smash it up with a sledgehammer, and he was like, is this the last thing to go? And I was like, yeah. Well, of course, we removed the cushions. As we're starting to move it, I went, oh my God, we found 2 bags stuffed, empty.
Nah.
But literally, I went to him, oh my God. And it's the first time I've ever found anything, because actually my drawer next to my bedside table, I was 2 weeks into my recovery. And I had a panic, because what happened on the final day that I used, and this is how I knew I was done. And any cocaine addict, when they hear me say this, they will know. On the final time that I used, I put a gram back in the bag. I was done. Yep. I was like, I dropped everything and I sobbed for hours, and I was like, why do I keep doing this to myself? And I remember sitting there and looking at it, and I put it back in the bag and I put it in my drawer, and it sat there for 2 weeks. So I was 2 weeks clean. So my clean date is the 28th of December. So I went out on New Year's Eve knowing that there was a gram in there, nearly went home and didn't, white knuckled it through. And then the second weekend of January, I'd gone to watch the rugby with a friend, and I said to him, I was like, I know that gram's in there. And he was like, right, either I go and remove it or someone does. And so I rang my mum, and I was like, listen, you're going to have to get rid of it. So I got home, and she'd taken the entire drawer. Like, she just took the whole drawer out of the thing, and that was it. And so I never actually... she cleared that, so I never it was mad. But you know what happened, right? She was too scared to throw the cocaine away because she thought the police had found her, right? So it was hidden in the house for 2 years. For 2 years, she had it hidden in a candle holder. I'd sat in front of it about 1 million times because she got it in her head that the police would be able to track the cocaine back to our house. I was like, Mum.
Why won't she just flush it down the toilet and then
honestly,
bag somewhere?
She panicked. And so she had it.
That's such a mom move.
It is.
We're just going to move the gram of cocaine somewhere where nobody can see it.
We're going to put it in a candle. Let's just put it in a candle, and that's and honestly, I'd sat in the chair and it had been behind my head, And I was like, I remember when she told me, and it didn't actually bother me. And honestly, I
guess you have to laugh about something like that,
though.
I mean,
What else can you do? I mean,
such a mom thing to do.
Genuinely, and she is like, she's adorable. And I don't know. I mean, she still gets upset now, not in a bad way, but she's like, she'll cry and go, I got my daughter back. And
yeah, it's a nice moment, isn't it?
She hugs me, and she's like, and I think she's quite. I mean, my mum didn't sleep for like 20 years, like, and she said that because I'm an only child as well, and so they used to spend a lot. So that's why we all kind of lived together, because they used to spend a lot of time in France, and they said that like the phone would ring, and they'd both sit there and go, this is gonna be the phone call, like she's dead.
Yeah.
Like this is gonna be the phone call.
Just waiting for that moment. My mom used to say the same thing.
Yeah.
She would wait by the phone at night and just wait for the phone to ring and be like, he's either in jail or something really terrible's happened. She wouldn't sleep because it was just it's hard for them.
When I look back on that, I remember, so when I first, and we're very open, we all talk about all of it, you know, and some of the stuff we laugh at because some of it is ridiculous. But I remember saying to my mum, I'd be like, when I came home, it used to drive me nuts because she'd be staring out the window, and I was like, why were you so fucking nosy? She said, I was checking you were alive. And I'd never thought of it like that. She used to panic that somebody would literally just throw me out the car.
Just throw your body.
Yeah. And that was, and you know, when you sit there and go, addiction is a level of selfishness that you have no idea that you're doing it at the time. And I look back now, and I'm, you know, my mum sleeps now. She doesn't worry. The thing is though, I remember I had to pop out and get my eldest wanted like McDonald's like late at night, and I was like, right, I'm not paying $3.99. And so I went to go into my mum to assure her that I was just going to McDonald's, and she was like, yeah, you're over 4 years clean now, you don't need to do that anymore. I was like, Mum, I'm just going to McDonald's, just so you know that I'm not. like 4 years down the line, and I'm still explaining myself. It's weird, but do you know what? When I got clean, it was day 21, right? I've never ever been able to get through that like third weekend, never. And I've got a video from that night of day 21, and I'm literally I'm on edge, and you can hear it in my voice, and I'm agitated, and it got shared again this year. It gets shared every year, and I literally, I was like, I can do this, and you know, and the cocaine has been talking to me since this fucking morning, and it's not gonna fucking do this. I remember waking up, so that was day 20. I remember waking up on day 21, and it was like the fog cleared, and I went, I've got this now. And that is it. Like, and I don't know if you know how much you know my story. So like 9 months into recovery, I nearly died. I contracted it. So I've lost like 17 stone. In pounds, there's 14 pounds to a stone. So 17 times 14, yeah. And so I had gone, I'd gone to have a tummy tuck in Turkey, and something wasn't sterile. And
oh no,
I got necrotizing fasciitis, but they were telling me that it was normal. And in the end, I said to my mum, I couldn't actually get up the stairs in the house. I was sleeping in our conservatory on like a recliner. And I said to my mum, I was like, listen, check my temperature. If it's a little bit up, can we ring 111? And so that was what we did. My mum literally told her what had gone on. She said, don't wait for an ambulance, go straight in. I went into A&E. Within 20 minutes, I was gowned up, and I had a surgeon say to me, I know what you've got, and I don't think I can save your life. And do you know what? In that minute, I knew. In my head, I went, I don't want to fucking die. And it's the first time I'd ever said that. And I remember sitting there thinking, nah, fuck that. Like, I've only had 9 months. You're not taking me out with an infection. I was like, of all the stupid shit that I have
That you
done.
did.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
this ain't taking me out. And so my mum got the end of life call. They rang her and said, you got 10 minutes to come and say goodbye. We had to do the whole end of life. I got wheeled into theatre.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And my entire recovery in that moment has never been the same again. When you get told, you're going to die, right? I was like, I don't sweat the small shit. Don't get me wrong, I do on the odd occasion. But I remember sitting there thinking, all of that was so irrelevant. And I was thinking of the wasted time and things like that. And so I remember saying to myself, and that's why I do what I do. So I did a deal. I did a deal with the universe because I'm not very religious. Like I believe in I call it God only because like higher power's 4 syllables and I'm lazy as fuck. So it's like God is 1 syllable, isn't it? And or Sky Daddy. We do call it Sky Daddy sometimes. And so I can't I'm making like a deal with him. I'm going, listen, if you get me through this, then I promise that I will help as many women to get sober as possible. And so this is me keeping up my end of the bargain, and I will do for the rest of my life because I made that deal. And but it took him 12 and a half hours to save my life, and then I had to have a second surgery, and then it was like a year later, my face paralyzed. You can still slightly see it. I had Bell's palsy, so it's slightly paralyzed still here.
Yeah.
And then
my God.
Yeah. Then my grandma died. Then my dad got diagnosed with Huntington's. It's been a hell of a ride. But
yeah, but you know what? Thank God you got sober. Like, thank God you got sober in those moments because now you're dealing with that shit without, putting stuff up your nose. Like you're actually handling it like
a grown up.
Everybody else does, like a full grown adult.
Like a full grown adult.
That's why I said I lost my mom. I lost my mom and my dad.
Oh.
But I had some sober time under I had my mom 3 years. I gave her 3 years of my sobriety. She was proud and happy. That made me happy. But yeah, so it's like, I get what you're saying. Like you have those moments where like now you're going to be tested because you're going to have that shit, all the shit that happens to people in life. But at least you're dealing with it sober. You're dealing with a clear head.
I remember my best friend, because I didn't have time to ring anyone. It was only my mum could be rung. And so I said to my mum, I was like, tell Ella and Elise that I love them, and that got me a bit, that choked me up then. I remember Ella saying to me, she said, if you were still in addiction, if you hadn't have died on that in the theatre, you'd have died when you came out. She said, because I would have had the biggest excuse under the sun. And my mum said to me, she said, I was prepared when you came out that if you said, like, Mum, can you get me some vodka? She said, I was like, she said, and she'd kind of said to my dad, I don't know how I'd say no to her, right? But the interesting thing was, not at any point in any of that did my brain go, cocaine will help here. Not once. The only thing was literally, no, I'm not just getting, fuck off. I'm not just getting 9 months. That's not happening. I was literally like, no. And and that was it. And so, and the thing is, sometimes, like, it's not that I don't have patience for people, because I do. I genuinely have patience for people. But when people are like, oh my God, like this happened, and so I'm like, fuck off. I nearly died. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm like, you can get through this. Like,
but you have to think about back to your addict mind. Like, that's the addict looking for the excuse. They're looking for the way out. They're looking for the easy road. The hard road is being like, nah, I'm not going to fold. I'm not going to crumble. It takes a minute to get there. And it's hard for people to get to that point, to get that strength, that you have, where you're just like, well, fuck it. It's what I dealt with this. I dealt with that. Some people are just still, like, I think a bit, in those moments,
it's
they're
heartbreaking,
afraid, and they when you have some shit happen,
It is, and it's hard.
An excuse is what you're looking for.
Yeah, of course. And I think the thing is, you know, because I have a membership that I run with women, and so it's, you know, it's very kind of confidential, and they can come in, you know, and they all say to me that the one thing I say to them is like, choose you every time. And you know, when people are like, such and such is happening, and I'm thinking about drinking, and I'm like, can I tell you something, right? Not at any time in my life when I had a problem and I opted for cocaine and alcohol to solve it, did it. So what it actually did is it made me wake up with 13 more problems, because I'm a little bit of a fucking liability when I drink. I would have probably called somebody to see you next Tuesday on social media. So then my inbox, like Rhian on cocaine caused sober Rhian untold. And I'd literally, and I'm like, please play it forward. But then I sit there and I think of all the times I couldn't play it forward, of all the times when I'd be going, it is going to be different this time, isn't it? My addict would be like, yeah, it's going to be different. I'm like, okay. And it just wasn't. And it wasn't. And it's, I find addiction heartbreaking. Like I now understand, like now I sit there where I help people, is I understand how my family and my friends felt, and it's heartbreaking. And I say to people, I'm like, I wish, if there's one thing I wish, because I was terrified of a life without drink or drugs, because addiction had convinced me that I couldn't live without it, that I wasn't capable of existing without cocaine and vodka, right? And that's just not true. Like, it's like I'm genuinely out here coping and shit without them. But that belief is so real. And this is what I say to people. I'm like, I know that you're scared. Like, I get it. And it's why I share very honestly, and I do share my life. And you know, I have shared through I've gone through depression. I went through a mental breakdown, you know, and I've shared through that. And I won't lie, there's been some hairy moments where I have sat there and thought, oh, fuck this, you know, and then...
I think if you're being honest in your recovery, I think everybody, you know, who has a significant amount of sober time will tell you that, like, there are moments where you sit there and you're contemplating, thinking, like, this shit is all a bit too much. Like, fuck all this. Like,
I just want to think.
I'll just burn it all down.
Yeah.
And then that'll be done. And then nobody will fucking bother me anymore.
I know. And the thing that I say to people as well is, I'm like, listen, thoughts aren't real, right? They're not real, right? And apparently the average thought lasts 3 minutes, right? And so in the grand scheme of things, that's not very long, unless you're waiting for something, you know, to be cooked in the microwave, or you're doing like a plank in the gym, and then like 3 minutes is fucking eternity. But I
waiting for water to boil as well.
Oh yeah, that's the other one, for like pasta or rice or something. That's yeah,
you're just sitting there staring at it. Like, oh yeah.
And so this is what I say to people. I'm like, listen, you know, just because you think about it doesn't mean you have to act upon it, right? And I'm like, so there's things that I teach people, like I teach them to shout out stop, to interrupt their actual brain, you know, because that's all it is thoughts aren't real. They're not real. And that is the biggest thing that because us addicts, we like to catastrophize. And so you probably did this as well. You know, like if you'd had an argument with someone, right? Or it'd be like a little thing, you know, like 4 hours later, you'd sit there and reenact the argument, right? But they wouldn't be there this time. And so you'd be like, yeah, and then I'm going to fucking say that. And you're doing their part of the argument and your part of the argument, right? I've made myself cry by what I said back to me as them. That's mental. That's literally. And the hypothetical. Like
not even, the situation's not even
it's
real.
Not
You're just
real.
Yeah. I've done it in my head before, where you just kind of like go back and you're throwing the shit back and forth, and you know, it might have been like a confrontation or something, and I'm like, oh, I should have just fucking done this or fucking done, and then you get your head is just spinning. Yeah,
like literally, and it is, and you know, and I sit there, and again, these are the things that I teach. Is I sit there, I'm like, right, when you start doing that, you need to ask yourself one very quick question: is this really happening right now? I said, and then I make people like touch, and I do it to myself, right? Listen, I am not going to sit there and be like, you know, my first 2 years of recovery, I was a fucking knob. And I say to people, I'm like, listen, if you're not a complete twat in your first year of recovery, you didn't do it right, because we're all over the shop. And in the first year, you're fucking mental still. And I kind of, my calmness came in like year 4, like last year. I got that. I kind of just chilled into recovery. So my partner's in recovery, right? But he's 18 months behind me. And so he is now
coming into it.
He's coming into that. So when we first got together, he was 4 months. Fuck me. I was like 2 years, right? And he was literally like a fucking Jack Russell, you know, just like running. And I'm like, just sit the fuck down. And so we did split up for a while because we just couldn't.
It was too much.
We couldn't
You were
work.
in different places in recovery.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, he's a competitive bodybuilder. And so I used to weight train, but obviously where I'd gone through what I'd gone through, I couldn't train. And so he was, you know, he wanted me to be something that I couldn't, and I wanted him to be something that he couldn't, and it just went boff. And so we were apart for like 4 or 5 months. And then when we got back together, we both kind of said, I was like, listen, I want to be with you where you are now, not where I want you to be. And he was like, same. He's like, I don't care if you can't go to the gym. He's like, because actually it meant fuck all when I didn't have you there to talk to you. Do you know what I mean? You know, when you sit there and you're like, it's the stupid shit that we just put on other people. And now, like, it's the best relationship that I've ever had. I stayed single when I first came in, because I was like, I ain't doing that. I'm not replacing cocaine with dick. That was never going to help anyone. And so,
that'll end up bad as well.
Yes, and I've seen it. But then on the other hand, Gareth was 4 months. But I used to sit there and be like, well, that's down to Gareth. I chose not to.
Yeah.
Gareth, on the other hand, you know, but, you know, when we split up, I was kind of like, yeah, I get why people say that, because he was fucking mental in that first year. But like I say, now he'll be 3 years in September. So Gareth's going through the kind of the chilled out stage. He's like, yeah, bro. I'm like, it's good, isn't it? Like, and yeah, he kind of sits there. He's like, now I get what you were talking about. And it does get more chilled out. Like, definitely. I think so anyway. I love sobriety. How long clean are you?
I'm 12 years.
I was gonna say,
12 years.
And you look chilled. You don't look like you're stressed.
No, I'm not. Like, in my mind is all over the place.
Oh,
most
really?
Of the time. Yeah. I have anxiety and depression, and so I deal with like some stuff, and I find it difficult. Like, I don't know, I find it hard to like deal with emotions and process them in like an orderly fashion. If too many things come at me, I get a bit overwhelmed, and I just shut off. I just shut everything down. I just kind of go into my because it's easier. So I still struggle with figuring out ways to cope with certain things, because if I get too overloaded, I get too overwhelmed with like life. Because like, you know, because life sometimes just, it doesn't happen at your convenience. It happens, doesn't it? Like, and so when you get like multiple things in a row, I find dealing with them difficult, because I find it easier to deal with one thing
at a time
than the next thing. Then the next thing. If it all comes at once, I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
And my mind starts going all over the place. The anxiety ramps up.
Have you ever? So there's something that I teach, and the reason I had to do this was because of the trauma that I went through. Is I had to be able to find a way to deal with life with exactly what you just described. And so there's something I teach, which is emotional living, right? And so it's little things like, so you know, like WhatsApp, right? With the blue, does it, you know, if somebody blue ticks you and doesn't respond, does that get on your nerves? Does that make you? Does it make? Oh, you're cool about that. So you're not like too bad. You're not too anxious. So there's still a lot of people.
Not super.
That's the thing, is that there are still a lot of people in addiction that like, and I remember somebody messaged me, and it was like a 2-minute long apology, right? Because and they were like, you know, I'm so sorry that I read your message and I didn't, and I was like, dude, I didn't even fucking notice, like genuinely. I was like, and I messaged back, I was like, I really appreciate the apology. I didn't even fucking realize.
Didn't hit your radar.
Yeah, literally. I was like, the thing is as well, you know, like, we're still little selfish fuckers at heart sometimes. You know, that's honestly,
the truth. Ask my wife; she'll tell you she thinks I'm a selfish bastard all the time. But I find it hard not to be. I really find it. I try, like, I don't know if it's like
Gareth says
it's my personality. I work really hard at trying not to be, but yeah, sometimes I look at it. She'll tell me, and then I'll look at it and go, shit, you know what?
Yes.
I was selfish as fuck. But I don't even think about it. It's just like, it just comes instantly.
Do you know what I like? And you're the same as Gareth, is I bet in addiction, if somebody had have said that to you, you would never have been able to have seen it. You'd have literally ripped their head off and been like, fucking and Gareth's the same.
Yeah.
You know, he now, listen, at the end of the day, right, I'm never gonna be perfect, right? I'm close, but I'm I am joking. Sometimes people don't get my sarcasm, and so then I'm like, yeah, the people that know me know that I do not take myself very seriously. I take my recovery seriously, but me, I don't. You know, I spent a long time being a miserable in addiction, and so I refuse to be miserable in recovery. I was like, nah. And so yeah, this is the thing, you know, like, I know that I'm going to get things wrong, and Gareth knows that he's going to get things wrong, and so we kind of sit there, like, we don't really argue anymore. And like, he will now come in and go, yeah, I was a bit of a dick the other day. I'm like, yeah, you were, you know, and then we'll just kind of talk about it and just kind of move on. But I'm the same. You know, there was a situation, and actually I realized that I was starting to push Gareth in a direction but he was able to go to me. Listen, he came back, he was like, need to talk. I'm like, all right, am I in trouble? Or like, and he's like, no. He's like, well, I'm not too sure. And I was like, okay, cool. And so yeah, and so it was this kind of thing that we're doing at the moment. And I think a year ago, I think he kind of wanted what I do. And then as he's now going through that kind of relaxed period, he's kind of like, actually, I don't want to fucking do that. Like, I just want to chill out. And you know, and so he was like, I don't know if this is what I want, and blah, blah, blah. And so I kind of then reflected, and I was like, yeah, maybe I'm trying to push him in a direction that he doesn't want to, you know, he doesn't. Whereas if that had been an addiction, how dare you fucking tell me that I'm to be honest, it wouldn't have got further than, can I have a talk? Nah. Like, literally, it would just be, no, I don't. I mean, I was in an abusive relationship for 9 years, and that was horrific. And so my using, again, not using him as an excuse, but it definitely got worse to numb him out. But then, of course,
well, I'm sure it all intertwines, doesn't it?
Yeah,
all kind of it just wraps itself together.
Yeah, and then when I kicked him out, he was my ultimate excuse. If you'd have been treated like me, you'd be drinking like me, and so that was why people, I suppose, let me get away with it for a long time, because they were like, you
play the victim, don't you?
I was amazing.
Drinking, you just something happened, you don't have money for this, or something, you know, fucked up, you lost your job, oh god, fuck this,
it's never my fault.
Like, you look for that shit, you look for that pity excuse, you look for that bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of jobs that I lost, but it was never my fault. Like, never. And I was the ultimate, like, storyteller. You know, I'm like, listen, and I'd convince myself, you know, and it is interesting now. Like, when I look back and I think, so in our house, our kitchen is out the front, right? And so I used to get my drug dealer to park on the corner, right? And so there's a window, obviously. And so, you know, if my mum was in the kitchen, I'd be like, yeah, I'm just going to the car, right? And then I used to think that I would like Mission Impossible it underneath the window, and like she wouldn't see me.
You wouldn't know. She'd have no idea.
But at this point, I have been drinking and using for probably about 36 hours straight, right? So
you're just stumbling all over the place.
This was the thing. So when I first came, this is the thing, is that in my head, I'm like, I totally got away with that. So I said to
she
him,
doesn't know anything.
I was like, she has no idea. She thinks I've just gone to the car and blah, blah, blah. And so I remember, like, when I first got clean, I said to my mum, I said, I don't know if you know. I said, but my drug dealer, she went, yeah, we knew. I was like, oh, really? I said, I thought I was a bit like 007. She went, you a 00 dickhead, more like. And I was like, sorry. But this is the thing. There are moments of it that we are able to, as a family, kind of. I remember Mum and I were out on holiday, and the water went up my nose. I was like, the teeth up my nose. She was like, oh, water it can't, but cocaine is perfectly fine. I was like, oh, that was quite funny, Mum. Yeah, she probably got me. Yeah, she did.
Yeah,
I was like,
that's a burn. That's a solid burn.
I know. I was quite proud of her, but I love that. I love that I'm glad that I didn't destroy my parents past the point of no return. I'm so grateful.
You still have a relationship. Yes. You still have a relationship there, which is amazing.
We have an incredible,
because you can have those moments, those laughs, and those jokes or whatever, because you didn't burn the bridge.
Yeah, it's okay. It was actually my dad. So what happened in the November of 2019? They tell you that there is that kind of moment when a situation kind of just gets through the addiction and gets to you. And I had that. It was kind of it was an almost consequence. And so up here, I'd obviously passed out and I'd knocked a plastic bag onto my ashtray and it had set alight. And so I came round to just my mattress on fire, and I'm like,
Jesus.
Fuck. So it was November, so my parents were back from France, so I shouted down to my dad. I was like, the mattress is on fire. And he's like, what on earth are you? And I'm like, Dad. So I'm just stood in the corner like this little helpless child, and I'm 37. And so he puts it out, right? And then he said 4 words that I'll never forget. And he said, how much longer, Rhian? And I was like,
wow.
And I just stood and looked at him, and I remember the look on it, and he just looked broken, and he didn't say anything else, and he turned around and he walked out. And I was like, and I couldn't answer the question. I was in any way, shape or form. I was like, I didn't know how much longer I could actually do this for. Like, I knew, and I knew then, I was like, if I can't get this, I will not see my 40th birthday, because I can't do this anymore. And so that was what got through. And then so I stayed sober. So I think it was like 2 weeks, and then the Christmas Eve, I found my mum collapsed on the floor Christmas Eve, and so selfishly was like, oh, we ain't gonna have a Christmas Day, so I'll get on it. And then obviously the day when I put the gram back in the bag, and I've never picked up since. And it's like, when I look at the succession of Steve Jobs always says, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. You can't connect them looking forwards, but you've just got to have faith that down the line they'll connect. When I look back at my dots, I'm like, Jesus Christ, something was looking out for me.
Yeah.
Something was. And so that's why I live my life how I do. I'm so grateful. Like, I am so grateful every day. Like, I'm grateful for everything I have. Don't get me wrong. I can't walk properly. I'm registered disabled because of obviously what happened with my stomach and things like that. And I am going to have like reconstructive surgery. But I'm like, I'm still here. I've got an amazing partner, 2 boys, my mum and dad, like, What is there to not
all
be?
the things that you probably never thought you could have,
Exactly.
you now do have. So
Exactly.
kudos to that.
And that's the other side of it, is that when I sit there, I did have quite a wobble the Christmas just gone. It was so weird. I kept seeing people getting dressed up for Christmas parties, and I got FOMO, like, you know, like fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And I was like, why am I getting this 4 years in? And then I sat there and I was like, do you really want to lose all of this? I was kind of sat there like,
Yeah.
you know, and I just think it's self-sabotage, isn't it? And I was the queen of self-sabotage. Every opportunity that came my way, I fucked it because of cocaine and alcohol. And that's why I say to a lot of the women, I'm like, just choose you each time, like, and just keep choosing you. And that's how I look at it. I'm like, I just got to choose me today, and not cocaine, and not alcohol, you know. And when it kind of comes knocking, and that's what I say to them, I'm like, listen, when drugs and alcohol come knocking, tell them to fuck off, because they got nothing new to say. Like, nothing. There's nothing new. They've got nothing new to offer. Just tell them to fuck off. And, you know, and hopefully they continue to tell them to fuck off for the rest of their lives. And yeah, I am so lucky, because I know that most addicts don't get what we've got. And so I am very grateful.
That's true. I know. And then, you know, this podcast is set to, we're here to provide these stories, the success, to show that people can go through the horrible stuff that, you know, I've gone through, that you've gone through, and come out the other end and have fulfilling lives, to have lives that they otherwise never would have thought they would have had. And now, you know, you're happy, you're doing things that you want to do in your life, and it's way more fulfilling that way.
It is. And I think, you know, when I first got sober, I couldn't, you know, like, I couldn't have even imagined this life. And I say to people, I'm like, imagine the best life that you can imagine. I'm like, then times it by 1 million, and then add tax, because I'm like, that's what you're looking at. Like, that's where I'm at now. When I, you know, like, I'm engaged to the most amazing man on the planet. Like, he's ridiculous, and he's perfect for me. And, you know, and my mum and dad are happy, and my friends are happy, and their children are happy. And I'm like, this is what life is all about. And you know, the one thing, my best friend, she always says, she says, I love when you ring me now, because I'll always pick up. She said, because I'm not scared anymore. And I love that. And she can video call me. She video calls me with the kids and stuff. And, you know, because I missed, you know, a fair few years of their life. And so now I'm like, you know, I'll spend my time making it up to people. And, you know, and staying clean and sober is, I mean, she wouldn't take a sorry from me. She wouldn't take it. I tried, and I was like, I cannot get the words. And she was like, I don't need a sorry. She said, I just need you. So just stay back. And I continue to do.
That's motivation right there, isn't it? Like,
honestly,
alone.
What I do understand, though, is that I am very lucky. Don't get me wrong. There are family members and an old best friend who will not accept that I'm clean and sober. And I have to be okay with that. I have to accept that. Maybe there was a level of destruction there that, you know, and but it doesn't.
I have to let that go.
I have to, because it doesn't change whether they believe I'm clean and sober or not. It doesn't change the fact that I am. And actually, and I don't mean this to sound nasty, but I didn't get clean and sober for them.
Nope.
I didn't. I did it for me.
Exactly.
And luckily, because I did it for me, everybody's lives around me gets better. But first and foremost, and this is what I say, I'm like, you're not doing it for your kids. Like, you're not doing it for it. You do it for you, because you deserve a life, and it's more than drugs and alcohol can give you. And this is what frightens me. There is a whole wide world out there, right? And thousands and millions of people are fucking missing it because of drugs, and that breaks my heart because I know that I did for so long. And I literally sit there and I'm like, if you could just get a glimpse of what your life would look like you would be hurtling, like running towards it. Like, and I genuinely, I wish that I could. And again, it's why I share like I share, because I hope that my story is a glimpse of where their life can go. You know, the thing is, I share Gareth because obviously he's a bodybuilder, so he's got quite a nice body, and a lot of the girls are like, so if I get sober, do I get one of him as well? I'm like, well, you know, there's no reason you can't.
Yeah, there's no harm in trying. I mean, hey,
exactly.
You know, if that's what you look, if that's what you're into,
if that's what your look is, you know. But yeah, we are. We're very lucky, and you know, and for both Gareth and I to have two people in the family, you know, yeah, yeah, very grateful. I get quite emotional about my life because I never imagined it would be like this.
That's all right to get emotional. You deserve it. You went through a lot. So before we wrap things up, what do you have going on that you'd like to? Do you have anything you want to promote? Anything you have going on? You were saying you counsel women that are going through addiction and recovery.
Yeah, so
let's talk about that.
So we've got so Gareth and I founded Empowered Recovery. So that's our free support group. It's on Facebook, and that's for male and females. We basically wanted somewhere that it's very much him, and you know, I go live in there. You know, when it came up to Christmas, I literally did every single day in there for people, whether it was their first Christmas sober or they were literally trying, and it's very kind of hands-on. And then I've got a membership called Unapologetically You, and that's where I've got some amazing women. And they've been doing little flashbacks actually from the beginning of the year, and there's been some crazy changes in 2 months. But for me, I work with food addiction as well, so I suppose you could call me an addiction strategist, because there is a definite connection between alcohol, drugs, and food. So I also support women in food addiction, and I have a 28-day challenge. It's not a challenge. I hate that word. It's a program, because it's not a challenge. It will change their life, and that starts on March the 11th. But that's something that I have researched and worked so hard on, are the connections between the drugs and the alcohol. But yeah, Empowered Recovery, come and find us. And if you want to,
all the links on the videos.
Oh, amazing! But yeah, you know, there is a men only group as well in McGareth. That's a bit of a smaller one, because you know, the thing is, when it comes to recovery, there are things that, you know, men need to talk about with men, and women need to talk about with women. And you know, there's certain things, you know, there's certain things that I wouldn't sit there and tell a man, but I'd quite happily tell a woman, and we understand that. And I think the only way to kind of get through stuff like that is to have a safe space where you can talk about things, you know. And and again, the reason I share so honestly is because I don't want other women to feel the shame that I did. I want them to sit there and go, oh, it's all right, because she's done what I've done. So I'm not a piece of shit. Like I'm not. Yeah. And yeah, you know, it's not their fault, you know, but there is help out there. You know, we're here, and we are we're waiting to help people. So yeah, anyone needs help, come and find us.
Amazing. All right. So my last thing for this is, I want to ask you, what are your 3 things you need in your recovery? So some people do like journaling or yoga, or, you know, going to the gym, or mine is like running and going to the gym and physical activity. What are 3 things that you need in your recovery?
3 things that I need in my recovery. I need awareness of my behavior. I check myself a lot. So the awareness of my behavior, I meditate. I want to say Gossip Girl because I love watching Gossip Girl. Um,
You can if you want.
a really good like Netflix series. No, for me, it's to keep my sobriety strong. I make sure that I help other addicts. That I do keep an awareness of what I'm doing. And I do spend quiet time, meditate, if you want to call it that. But yeah, I need to. I have to get quiet time now. I don't like the drama. If any drama or chaos starts, I know that I need to pull myself back and I need to have a little chat with myself. And so yeah, I'm very aware of
getting very aware of yourself.
Yes,
yeah.
I've got a lot of self-awareness. You know, when I start to shout at people in cars, then I know that I'm not all right, and I need to have a little bit of a chat with inner Rhi and find out what's happening.
You need to,
but also I think connection is such a huge thing in recovery. Like, don't do it alone. That's probably my number one. Don't do recovery alone. Get a really strong support behind you, like
support team.
Yeah. Literally. And that's what I say. The only way we win is if we all win together. And so literally, you know, you're coming with us. It doesn't matter how many times this takes. It's only got to take that one final day, and you've got it, and that's it. And that's the way that we see it. And so yeah, we don't give up on anyone. So yeah, don't do it alone. Sorry, that was about 7 things. I'm such a female, and I.
No, it was all really good. All really good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Rhian, I appreciate you, Rhian, coming on the program and sharing your story openly, honestly, having a bit of a laugh at some stuff, and really just owning your recovery. That's amazing what you're doing. Yeah, so I just really appreciate your time coming on the program.
We got there in the end. We
did. We had a little technical issue, but it's all good now. I would like to shout out my sponsor, Christian's Crew. They're my first sponsor. It's a nonprofit organization in New Jersey, working on fentanyl awareness, the dangers of fentanyl. They lost their son, Christian, in 2019 to an accidental ingesting of fentanyl, a lethal dose. So go show Christian's Crew some support. They're on Instagram and Facebook. So if you'd like to show them some support, go look them up and give them a like, give them a share.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Me and my boys going crazy in 23. Like MJ, but we ain't never gonna fade away. We ain't never gonna fade away. Me and my boys going crazy in 23. Like MJ, but we ain't never gonna fade away. We ain't never gonna fade away. Me and my boys going crazy in 23. Like MJ, but we ain't never gonna fade away. We ain't never gonna fade away. Oh no, oh no. Me and my boys going crazy in 23. Like MJ, yeah. We ain't never gonna fade away. We ain't never gonna fade away. Oh no. Oh no, me and my boys going crazy in 23. Yeah, like MJ, but we ain't never gonna fade away. We ain't never gonna fade away. Oh no, oh no, me and my boys going crazy in 23. Yeah, like MJ, but we ain't never gonna fade away. We ain't never gonna fade away. Oh no, oh no. Me and my boys going crazy in 23. Like MJ, but we ain't never gonna fade away.